Welcome back to Lynn's Spotlight Daily, your daily scoop of entertainment buzz. Sebastian Stan as young Donald Trump in The Apprentice, a closer look at power, mentorship, and ambition. In The Apprentice, Sebastian Stan steps into a role unlike any he's played before, a young Donald Trump. The film, directed by Iranian filmmaker Ali Abbasi and written by journalist Gabriel Sherman, isn't your typical political biopic. It doesn't try to cover Trump's entire life or presidency. Instead, it zeroes in on a specific chapter in his life, the early years of his career in the rough-and-tumble world of 1970s and 1980s New York real estate. More importantly, it dives deep into his complicated relationship with Roy Cohn, the infamous lawyer and political fixer. Let's get one thing clear, this isn't a Trump movie in the sense of being a promotional piece or a hit job. It's a character study. And at the heart of it is the story of how a young, hungry, and image-conscious Donald Trump learned to wield power, and how the lessons he absorbed in those formative years shaped the man who would go on to become one of the most polarizing figures in modern American history. The film begins with Donald Trump working under his father, Fred Trump, a well-known real estate developer in New York. But young Donald is restless. He wants more. He's tired of playing second fiddle in his father's outer borough empire. He dreams of Manhattan, of skyscrapers and bright lights. That's when he meets Roy Cohn, a former chief counsel to Senator Joseph McCarthy and a man who knows the back alleys of power like the back of his hand. Cohn sees potential in Donald. Not just business potential, but political potential, image potential. He takes him under his wing, and in doing so, introduces him to a worldview that is aggressive, unapologetic, and entirely transactional. The advice is simple but brutal: attack relentlessly, never admit defeat, deny everything, and always be on offense. These aren't just business tactics, they're survival tactics in a city where deals are made behind closed doors and reputations are currency. Through this lens, the film doesn't just show how Trump became a successful developer, it shows how he became Trump. Sebastian Stan, best known for roles in The Falcon and The Winter Soldier and Pam and Tommy, delivers a performance that's both restrained and revealing. He doesn't play Trump as a caricature. There's no orange makeup, no exaggerated hand gestures, no parody. Instead, Stan goes inward. He captures the insecurity, the ambition, the calculated charm, and the deep need for approval that seem to drive the character. At times, his Trump is almost sympathetic, a young man trying to break free from his father's shadow and carve his own path. But as the film progresses and Roy Cohn's influence takes hold, we see a change. The softer edges harden. The charm becomes manipulation. The ambition becomes hunger for dominance. Jeremy Strong, known for his Emmy-winning role in Succession, plays Roy Cohn with a mix of charisma and menace. He's slick, confident, and always in control. Watching the dynamic between Strong and Stan is like watching a craftsman mold clay, the mentor shaping the students into something more powerful, and possibly more dangerous. What The Apprentice does so well is highlight the human cost of power. It's not just a story about real estate or lawsuits or big personalities, it's a story about identity. Donald Trump, in this film, is constantly performing. For his father. For Roy Cohn. For the press. He's learning how to be the person he believes he needs to be in order to win. But that comes at a cost. The film touches on Trump's personal relationships, including his marriage to Ivana Trump, and portrays moments that are deeply uncomfortable. One controversial scene depicts an alleged sexual assault, an inclusion that has already drawn criticism and legal threats from Trump's camp. But the filmmakers have stood by the film, insisting that it is a dramatization based on documented reporting, including Gabriel Sherman's work. More than anything, though, The Apprentice is about influence, how we are shaped by the people we admire, fear, or depend on. Trump's relationship with Roy Cohn is central to the film's narrative arc. Cohn is more than a mentor, he's a model. And by the end of the movie, we're left to wonder, where does Roy end and Donald begin? Ali Abbasi's direction gives the film a gritty, grounded feel. The cinematography leans into a muted color palette that mirrors the gray moral world the characters inhabit. There's a certain coldness to the visuals that reflects the transactional nature of Trump and Cohn's relationship. But there are also flashes of vulnerability, moments where the mask slips and we see the human underneath the bravado. The film's pacing is deliberate. It doesn't rush through events or try to check boxes. Instead, it lingers on conversations, stares, gestures, things that might seem small but carry heavy meaning. It trusts the audience to pick up on nuance, and that makes it all the more compelling. The Apprentice is already sparking conversations, not just about Trump, but about the broader nature of power in America. It raises questions about how influence works, how media images are constructed, and how personal ambition intersects with public life. It also asks us to consider the role of mentorship in shaping leaders. What happens when someone learns the wrong lessons from the wrong person? What happens when those lessons are rewarded, over and over again, by a system that values flash over substance? This isn't a film with easy answers, but it's one that invites reflection. Whether you love or loathe Donald Trump, The Apprentice offers a fascinating glimpse into the making of a public figure who continues to dominate headlines and shape political discourse. Sebastian Stan's performance anchors the film with surprising depth. He doesn't try to impersonate Trump, he inhabits him. And in doing so, he helps humanize a figure often seen as larger than life. That doesn't mean the film pulls its punches, it doesn't. But it does strive for something more complex than outrage or idolatry. It strives for understanding. In the end, The Apprentice isn't about taking sides. It's about telling a story of power, image, and the choices that define us. And it's a story worth watching.